Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. Believe it or not, it's been a full 52 weeks of giving sermons on various topics. As you may remember, last week I shared on the topic of gratitude. And one of the things that I appreciated the most was learning the divine principle at a young age. It really provided me a clear worldview that's helped me navigate all kinds of challenges in life and really address some of the deeper questions that I faced. So starting this week, I wanted to actually do a sermon series on our core teachings found in the Divine Principle. As we explore these series together, I want to encourage you to read along and find new understanding through engaging in the original text. So let's start with the first sentence in the Divine Principle. Every human being is struggling to attain lifelong happiness and overcome misfortune. I think this is a great starter line. I always come back to this point. Let's read it one more time. Every human being is struggling to attain lifelong happiness and overcome misfortune. You know, whenever I read this, it reminds me of a time when I was a sophomore in college. I was dorming with a few of my college, roommates. And I had my own room, but it was shared with three other guys. And it was a Friday night, and they were having a party, like literally in the room, in the dorm room. I'm trying to sleep because it's already midnight, but I'm under my covers, and the the sound is so loud, the music is so loud that the walls are vibrating with a beat. Anyway, I'm trying to go to sleep, and then all of a sudden I hear a loud knocking on my door. Knock, knock, and it's like, now, I want to talk to you. Can I come in? And so I'm like, okay. So I sit up in my bed, I let him in, he comes and sits down, and the first thing out of his mouth is, now, Kimi, I just want to be happy. And there was a lot of alcohol in his breath, and he was kind of drunk, and he was sharing his kind of sob story of trying to find happiness, but having it difficult. You know, I don't know if he just broke up or he was having relationship challenges, but I spent a few hours in the evening just listening to his story, and he wasn't really looking for advice, but I was just there to kind of listen to him. And it perplexed me because he was really among the most privileged. I mean, my whole roommate, they were all like top students, really had everything going on in their lives. But regardless of how you're doing in other areas of your life, still this desire to pursue happiness is really essential. And so that's the thing I really want to go into today. We all want to be happy, but the challenge is, why is it that there's many times where we're not happy? Some say that it's because we tend to look for happiness in the wrong places, or that happiness is never meant to actually be achieved for a long time. It's always supposed to be fleeting. But I think that the reason people aren't happy is because something is fundamentally missing in their lives, and they don't know what. More accurately, they don't know how to satisfy their innermost heart. So let's take a look at what the Divine Principle has to say about finding happiness. The pursuit of happiness. Let's see. So here, let's read. From the dawn of history until today, human beings have ceaselessly searched for the truth with which to overcome both types of ignorance and attain knowledge. Humanity, through religion, has followed the path of searching for internal truth, and through science has followed the path of seeking external truth. So here, the Divine Principle, or DP for short, is saying that we have searched for truth through both science and religion. And as humans, we sought to improve our quality of life through developing all kinds of technologies. And we've also practiced a variety of faith traditions to help address these internal questions of life. Questions like, what's the purpose of my life? Or is there life after death? Even, does God exist? It's important to note here that science and religion are like different languages or different tools, which are valuable when used in their area of expertise. So it doesn't make sense to argue which is right or wrong, or better or worse. It's kind of like math and writing, right? You don't say that math is better than writing or writing is better than math. You could say, I personally prefer one over the other, but you don't actually give a value statement to one or the other. And you don't try to explain one through using the language or tools of the other. Like you don't use numbers to write essays. And you don't just use words to show financial statements or architectural design. We need both. They're not meant to replace or compete with each other. Religion or faith and science are complementary things that we need to address different aspects of our lives. So let's continue reading. Only then, completely liberated from ignorance and living solely in goodness in accord with the desires of the original mind, will we enjoy eternal happiness. So the DP is saying here that the only way to enjoy eternal happiness is if we can overcome ignorance and live according to our original mind. Actually, our original mind is kind of like our innermost heart. Throughout history, our understanding and development of science has helped us dramatically increase our knowledge and quality of life. For example, when we discovered germs for the first time and the nature of disease, we realized if we could wash our hands, clean our hands, then we can really reduce the development of disease or getting sick. Or other technologies like the light bulb, or automobiles, airplanes, even cell phones, right? All of this has really helped us in developing our quality of life, which is great. But also there's been a development of faith and religion over time as well. So for example, in the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible, the Torah was the first time it brought these basic laws and order. In the 10 Commandments, if you look at, number 6 through 10, they seem very basic, but it's fundamental. Like, do not kill, do not steal, do not commit adultery. The fact that they had to state those things means that before there was no order. People were killing, people were stealing, people were committing adultery with no sense of whether that was right or wrong. So many times morality was driven by a spiritual maturity and understanding of what goodness is and what the way we're supposed to live is. And in the New Testament, we find that there's an elevated understanding or an additional understanding of forgiveness and love. Comparing, for example, eye for an eye, which was prevalent in the Old Testament, was elevated or additionally added was, turn the other cheek. Basically, forgive your enemy. And Jesus also proclaimed the 2 great commandments. Love the Lord with all your heart and mind and soul, and love your neighbor as you love thyself. So this understanding of beyond just rules, but to really understand loving each other and understanding the grace of God, this was really a progression of our understanding of faith, our understanding of God, and our relationship with God. So we've had all this advances in technology and science, as well as a deeper understanding of God's grace. Yet we are still unhappy. Why? Let's continue to read. This world and its desires tenaciously grab hold of religious people, driving them into the depths of agony. Such is the contradiction which plagues their devotional lives. Even many enlightened spiritual leaders, still torn by this contradiction, have met a sad end. We see in society generally, there's corruption in the political world, there's corruption in the business world, there's corruption even in the realm of religion, of which we ourselves are not exempt. This is simply the human condition. Again, we've had so many developments in science and even in our understanding of faith, but despite that, we're still struggling because there's still corruption. So even if we have all the knowledge and feel all of God's grace, unless we're able to overcome this corruption and be free to practice goodness, we will not be truly happy. And this world will never be at peace. So let's take a closer look at this corruption within. In the divine principle, it's called the Great Contradiction. Let's read. We find a great contradiction in every person. Within the self-same individual are two opposing inclinations: the original mind that desires goodness and the evil mind that desires wickedness. They are engaged in a fierce battle, striving to accomplish two conflicting purposes. Any being possessing such a contradiction within itself is doomed to perish. Human beings, having acquired this contradiction, live on the brink of destruction. Seems like a very dramatic statement, but if you really experience this, you'll know how true this is. The divine principle is saying here that we all have this contradiction, this conflicting purpose within us that are at war with each other. One quick example that might make it easy to understand, it's like in the cartoons where there's an angel that shows up on your one shoulder, and then the devil shows up on the other shoulder, and they're kind of like arguing with each other, basically talking to your mind and your conscience, like, oh, which way you should do, which way you should go, or what you should do in any given situation. The angel represents your conscience, and the devil represents selfishness. Let's look at some examples, starting with the Bible. In the lives of religious people, one can see an intense struggle to realize goodness by single-mindedly following the desires of the original mind. Yet since the beginning of time, not even one person has abided strictly by his original mind. For I delight in the law of God in my innermost self, but I see in my members another law at war with the law of my mind, and making me captive to the law of sin, which dwells in my members. Wretched man that I am. This is from Romans chapter 7, verse 22 to 24. It's from the Apostle Paul, who is known as one of the most devout disciples of Jesus. He clearly felt this contradiction within. One related example of this is, this happens often where you want to be faithful to your spouse, but at the same time, you're drawn to the desires of your flesh, seeking stimulation through other partners or pornography. This is one common challenge I see many of us experience. Another example of this contradiction is self-centeredness at the expense of others. Especially in America, it's such a me culture, me first culture, right? And the extreme examples of this can be seen by turning on the evening news. All kinds of crime, robbery, homicide, rape, financial Ponzi schemes. These are all examples of extreme self-centeredness. where people are willing to put their desires at the expense of the happiness and comfort of others. I remember one time being really shocked. I was in middle school, just going home from school, and there were two boys around our age. I was with my friend, and they just kind of basically all of a sudden put me in a headlock and said, give me your wallet, give me your money." I didn't have any money at that time. The only thing I had was like a train pass. But my friend quickly like gave them, the train pass, and they let us go, and kind of we quickly kind of moved on. But it was really shocking for me. I mean, what would compel someone to kind of do that, right? And yeah, it left a lasting impression of this pondering of this question. Why is it that people would do such things? But if we understand that this contradiction is within each of us at different levels of expression, then we can understand that this is a perpetual issue that without resolving, there's no way we can achieve peace in the world. So, you might think that, oh, I would never steal, I would never do the kind of things that you see on TV, but we all experience this on a smaller scale in our own lives. Whenever we put our own desires first, without, maybe not at the expense of others, but without considering others. One pet peeve of my wife is that sometimes I'm really busy and I just need to quickly like eat and get back to work. So I would make breakfast for myself and sit at the table and kind of start eating. And she would look at me with this like, what the heck are you doing? How could you even consider eating by yourself without, preparing food for everyone? And so, yeah, that's one small example. But anytime we put just our own desires, our own needs first, without considering others, then it affects those around us. Now, one other example of this contradiction within is the gap between our ideals and goals and our reality, or our intention to achieve something versus the actual execution of it. So yeah, we call this the struggle between mind and body unity, where your mind is seeking growth and development, but your body seeks comfort and pleasure and relaxation. Again, it's not evil in and of itself, but when your body's desire dominate the higher desires of your mind, then things are out of order and it causes suffering and pain because it's not in the proper order. So some examples of that is like when we're exercise, we want to exercise and get really fit, but we end up sleeping in. Or we want to focus on that side hustle and developing our career, but we end up watching Netflix and binging on TV, or simply procrastination itself. That's not what we really want to do, but we end up doing, and we feel bad about it. Personally, I find video games especially challenging because video games actually taps into my desire for growth and development. The only problem is video games are a virtual world. It's not reality, but it feels good because you see your own character developing, getting more hit points and magic points, and you get new weapons and equipment, and you feel really good, like you're accomplishing a lot. And games are really good at, showing immediate reward for any kind of development. One time I was on a particular like phone game, and I was playing hours and hours. Every time I had free time, I was playing on my game. I still did my work, I still did my chores, but I remember distinctly having this conversation with my wife where she's upset at me, and I'm like, what? I did all my chores, and it was almost like I was doing the minimum necessary so that I can go back and play my game. So it suffice to say, it wasn't really good for our relationship. Anyway, right before my 40th birthday, I decided to cold turkey. I did the math and I was looking back at the past 4 months. I was spending like literally 20 hours a week. It was almost like a part-time job I was spending on the games. And it's games, so it's like it's free, it's entertainment, but the opportunity cost of that time was huge. The time that I could have been investing in my relationship with my wife or developing my career was spent on that game, which was enjoyable at the time, but it was fleeting in terms of real impact in my life. So we need to find a way to resolve these inner contradictions if we are ever to find lasting happiness. Hence, there's a need for a new expression of truth. This is where the new expression of truth comes in. Let's read. For humankind to fully realize the goodness which the original mind desires, at some point in history, there must emerge a new truth which can reconcile religion and science, resolve their problems in an integrated undertaking. The new truth should lead fallen people to block the ways of the evil mind and pursue the goals of the original mind, enabling them to attain goodness. It should guide people to remove the double-mindedness that sometimes seeks good and sometimes evil. It should also empower religious people to overcome the contradiction which they face in their struggle to live according to the way. So in order for humanity to move to this next stage of human development, spiritual development, we need a new truth that explains how to harmonize religion and science and shows how to manage this evil mind and strengthen our original mind or heart so that ultimately we can live our best selves. Let's continue to read. The new expression of truth should be able to reveal the heart of God, his heart of joy at the time of creation, the broken heart he felt when humankind, his children whom he could not abandon, rebelled against him, and his heart of striving to save them throughout the long course of history. The new truth should explain these puzzles, not in esoteric language, but, as Jesus promised, in plain language that everyone can understand. So this new truth should also elevate our understanding of God and help us in developing a personal relationship with God. There's also a need for understanding the purpose of history. Why did things happen the way that they did? Is there a meaning or purpose behind how history has developed? And also, finally, this new expression of truth should make faith and spirituality much more practical and valuable to everyday life, not just theory and ideology, but something that can help us in living our lives fully. So that's a lot to offer in one text, but that's what the divine principle does. And to give you a quick outline as to what it covers, let's take a quick read here. Due to the fall, human beings failed to establish this world. Instead, they fell into ignorance and built a sinful world. Accordingly, the new truth should guide fallen human beings to return to their original state. To do this, it must reveal the purpose for which God created humankind and the universe, and teach about the process of their restoration and its ultimate goal. So, quick outline of what the divine principle includes. It does identify what we call the fall, or what went wrong. Something went wrong and has caused the root or the foundation of the ongoing suffering, or the kind of the source the root of sin and evil and selfishness. It actually identifies what that is. But also the divine principle explains about the principles of creation, which is, what did God intend from the very beginning? What was God's plan? What was God's ideal for each of us and the plan for humanity as a whole? And finally, the third section is all about restoration, which is really the history of God not giving up on us and continuing to work throughout history to restore this relationship that we're supposed to have with God, and ultimately to build this peaceful world. So in summary, finding happiness, number one, we all want to be happy. Number two, we aren't happy because our inner contradiction prevents us from fulfilling our heart's desire. Number three, we need an expression of truth to resolve this contradiction within. And number four, the divine principle reveals the ideal, what went wrong, and the whole process of restoration so that we can get back to that original ideal. So, brothers and sisters, family, there is hope. A new expression of truth has been revealed that uncovers the source of our suffering, provides us with a clear solution that allows us, by applying these principles, once again to be free, to pursue and achieve lasting happiness. I want to invite you to read along or reread the exposition of the divine principle together with someone during this DP sermon series. And with that, enjoy your Sunday and may God bless you and your family. Take care, everyone.